Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our morning 8 a.m. series. Not the usual Arsenal transfer show or the Arsenal news show. You'll be surprised to know there's not loads of transfer news today after Arsenal played last night. And to be honest, even if there was, I would probably have saved it for tomorrow because there is more that we need to discuss. There's more that we need to talk about. And I kind of want to get a lot more of your thoughts and your theories and questions in and kind of really go on from where we finished off yesterday's reaction show, if you know what I mean, because yesterday's show, it was good. It was a good little bit of kind of therapy, I suppose. And I think that from just reading through my Twitter feed, to be honest, I found it really hard to get to sleep last night, not only because I had a horrible back pain, because I feel like I'm about 70 years old all of a sudden, but I kept on grabbing my phone, kept on looking at my phone, looking at Twitter, looking at the comments on the videos, and just saw a fan base in pain, is how it felt, basically. It was a fan base in pain. Thankfully, in a way, you cultivate your following. You be careful about who you follow, and you're careful about who you allow to tune in, and the community that you build that you have a responsibility to. So there's, I'd say, 99% of level-headed people I'm around, and so even when you've got that kind of base of a community, and there's that much hurt, and there's that much angst, and that much real divide, not even divide. I feel like the divide is actually lessening, and not in the way that we ever wanted it to, unfortunately. But the divide between those that would like Arteta to continue and those that would prefer a change in manager, I think that divide is getting a lot smaller, because I think that obviously the more time goes on, the more fans, I think, are getting on board with the idea that a change of manager is probably the most beneficial for the club. And it's a big shame. Now, I've sent the link to the Discord server of our members. If any of them at any point would like to join us to have their kind of views, I'd also be open to having more people on, just to, vent for a couple of minutes, respectfully, without swearing, of course, as always, because it's a family show. So send us a DM on Twitter if you'd like to have a couple of your points made on the show, and you can put it forward respectfully, and we'll try our best to get you on, because this may be a little bit of a longer show than normal, kind of going through plenty of your comments. So please do. Z Blogger says, gonna say it right now, to play so deep, indecisive, and devoid of ideas with that squad is now the stark reality of Arteta's football. We will no longer get top six. It's game over for Arteta. King says, I don't think we are ever going anywhere with Arteta. I feel like this is his level of management. I can't see him overperforming with Arsenal. For how long will we have to wait? Ishb says, it feels like filling round holes with square pegs, and as soon as we hit a form and take a dip, the dip goes too far for comfort. Defensively, we have been bad. And this is one of the big points for me, because you'll remember from watching the show and from reading articles and stuff like that, that we've always kind of looked back on the progression, or, the semblance of progression, the areas of things we have progressed in. And I've always referenced the defense being an area of progression. And as soon as Arteta starts to lose that, and as soon as we start to concede, I mean, we've conceded 9 now in our last 4 games, 4 against Liverpool, none against Newcastle, 3 against Man United, and 2 against Everton. As soon as you start to lose that ability to stay undefeated, as soon as you lose that ability to keep clean sheets, as soon as the players that have been performing well, and you would say Gabriel, White, Tomiyasu, Ramsdale, as soon as there starts being small mistakes and errors in their games, that's when you really have to start to be concerned. And I had a really good chat with Dan Potts this morning as well. I know has been banging the Arteta out drum for a fair amount of time, not virulently and not abusively, thank goodness. And he raises some really good points. Not that I always just agree with them, but he raises some good points this morning. And one of the things he pointed out was that if you look at the way that Aubameyang and Thomas Partey have kind of been under Arteta, 2 players that you would say have regressed during the time that Arteta has been here, That's a big tell of this team. Arteta himself has always pointed to those senior figures to step up. And I think we as fans have always kind of pointed to those senior figures and wanting them to step up. But when you actually look at it from the perspective that those senior players, especially Partey, who's only been at the club since Arteta was here, has never really been able to show the ability and the quality that he had at Atletico Madrid. You have to question whether or not, yes, has injuries affected that, but also has the system, has the structure, has the environment that he's come into also affected that? Drew says, question, do you think Arteta is out of his depth, and would Jesse Marsch do a better job with our squad? Firstly, do I think Arteta is out of his depth? I think there is plenty of evidence to suggest that he is. I mean, the fact that we finished 2 back-to-back 8th place finishes, you would say that. I think he's progressed certain areas of the team, but not enough. He's not done enough with the resources that are available to him. It's a shame because I have a lot of faith in Edu. I think that's something that I've always said on the channel, is that I like Edu. I think Edu's done some good things at the club. I think you look at the players that he's brought in, Gabriel, Partey, Lokonga, Tavares, Ramsdale, White, Tomiyasu, Erdegaard. And people talk about saying certain players are more Arteta, but at the end of the day, he's the one that's got to negotiate with the clubs. He's the one that's got to put the bids in and sign them. Arteta may, suggest this player, that player, but it's got to be signed off by both of them, and he has to go out and get those deals done. I like the strategy that he talks about putting in place, and it's part of me now thinking, does Edu have the manager to be able to, create and oversee this strategy that he's trying to implement at the club and the philosophy he's trying to put into the team? And I'm ever increasingly not so sure that is the case. Canoes, on Jesse Marsch, no, I don't think he's the right choice. Tom, do you see us getting top 4? Is that I'd be shocked, as I've always been. I've said this time and time again. I said it would be an unbelievable achievement for Arsenal to get top 4 this season. One, because I don't think we have a top 4 squad. I think we have the 5th best squad in the league. And 2, because obviously you can't lose games away to Everton like we did, and you can't perform consistently like we have, and have that as sustainable. And whilst I've been very much on the fence, one thing I have said over the course of these videos is I'm not sure that the way that we're playing is sustainable. I don't think we can sustain this style of play. And that's always been the biggest thing for us, is that the lack of chance creation, the concern about certain individuals like Aubameyang, like Partey, we're just not sure whether or not that it's sustainable and that you can push forward. Omar, did Benjamin White show naivety in defending for their winner by backing off? It's something that's been in Arsenal players for a long time, Omar. I mean, I think back to the Unai Emery, the end of the Arsene Wenger era. I don't know what it is, but something about our game, about stepping off. There's only so far you can. Maybe it's a lack of trust in the players that are around him, which wouldn't make too much sense because those players around him have done quite well, Tomiyasu and Gabriel. There's maybe a concern that if he dives in, he's going to either give away a penalty or he's going to have the ball taken around him. But backing off led to Damari Gray getting that great shot in, which is a low XG shot. But at the same time, stop the shot, stop the crosses. That's always just basic. Alan says, do you think Pepe should have been on? Do you think there is an internal issue with Pepe and Arteta? He is a goal threat for sure, no disrespect, but Nketiah played good. He was all right when he came on, Nketiah, but I just don't agree with the substitution. He rejected a contract. He's got 6 months left on his deal. He's done nothing this season for Arsenal in the Premier League because he's not been on. He hasn't got a future at Arsenal, so why are we bringing Nketiah on? I get that he probably is trying really hard in training, but to be honest, Patrick Vieira was one of the worst trainers that this club has ever seen. But on a match day, was our best player time and time again. What happens in training, what happens on the field is very different. And maybe we need to start looking at the performances of players on the field more consistently than just being loyal to those that, are giving 110% rather than those players that aren't necessarily the best of trainers. You can deviate between the two. I think maybe that's something that maybe Arteta is not considering, is actually who's going to give you the best performance on match day, not necessarily who's trying the hardest in training. Maybe that's the wrong way to go. Why did Partey come from Atleti to a club that's competing for anything of note? Same as Aubameyang on the signing the Ting, key senior players who don't have the required focus and leadership. I'm not sure that we point towards money as the main factor. Atletico Madrid was still paying him a very, very decent figure. It was a release clause that was activated. It was then up to him whether he wanted to leave or not. And he wanted to move to Arsenal, wanted to move to the Premier League. I think that's an unfair assessment on Partey. In regards to Aubameyang, I'm not sure if it's money. He was always very well paid. You look at his lifestyle. With Aubameyang, I don't really understand. I don't really understand how he can have fallen off a cliff so much and how his finishing and confidence could have got so bad. And maybe that's because he's not getting enough chances. The chance creation of this team is absolutely dire. And you look at the amount of chances that we're creating for Aubameyang, and it's not many. And he's not given the opportunity regularly enough during games to have another shot at goal, another chance, another try to get his confidence back because we're just not creating enough chances. It's really, really strange. And that's why I think you can no longer sit there and point the fingers at the players. So we can talk about the individual failings of Aubameyang and Partey and just a fair few players that have not lived up to expectation. But at the end of the day, it can't continue to be this bad overall when we know that these players are better than this and are given better than this and are better than this. You can't continue to point the fingers at the players. And you have to start maybe looking at who is leading them, who is guiding them, who is managing them. And that's kind of the issue that we find ourselves in right now. Again, Alan, no, Pepe at 9. We need to stop this idea of playing players in the wrong position. That's not how we solve this problem, is playing players out of position. It's just not how we solve these things. Temi says, Tom, these players are too good for 7th position. There are Olympic championships, champions and Euro finalists in this team. Oh, I see what you mean. The manager is not leading us in the right direction. Social says, but what is the issue with creating? We said this when we had no Ozil. We filled the form 3 with young, hungry kids. The forwards are the same, and we're still not scoring. It's style of play. It's philosophy. If you don't have the right style of play and philosophy and the players aren't being given the right guidance, you're not going to create the chances, no matter who is in place. Dave says, exactly. If so many players are underperforming, that comes down to coaching. Utah says, I've learned a lot from the evening's game. Arteta doesn't give the youngsters chances unless his hands are tight. I disagree with that. I think Arteta's given plenty of young players chances. We have the youngest average age in the squad. In the league, sorry. We had the youngest average age. So the argument that he doesn't give youngsters a chance is factually not true, but it's what he's doing with those young players that is the biggest problem. If says, Tom, please, how many top clubs in Europe is selling a project currently, and what's the assurance a future project will be a success? I think the board needs to start answering questions. What clubs in the whole of Europe are selling a project? Barcelona? It's weird, isn't it? Because we talk about kind of projects. What is a project? What is a process? What is it? It's for Arsenal. We've obviously fallen so far from where we once were that this project is about getting back there and how we get back there. But I don't think this club ever looks at getting back to the top as a situation where they chop and change managers. Now, my prediction is you're going to see reports come out over the next few days from, the likes of David Ornstein, those that are very well connected, that are going to be saying that the club are fully backing Arteta. That is my absolute expectation, is that you're going to see those style of reports, because at the moment, the fan unrest has never been higher than it probably has been right now. Maybe after the Villarreal game was probably the highest it's been. But right now, it's another high point of disillusion. It's a high point of anger and a high point of not divide, the opposite, because more and more fans are losing faith in the coach. And so I just feel like it's this moment where you'll see radio silence for the club, and it's this moment that you'll see the reports that the club are fully backing Arteta from within. That's what I think that you will see. Matt Roberts says, Tom, do you think Arteta needs to bring in a striking coach to help the coach forward? No, I just think if he needs to bring in coaches, that's a problem. He can't be a delegator. I don't want a delegator from a manager. I want a manager that's proactive. I want a manager that's got a clear philosophy that can get the best from everyone in his squads. I don't want a coach that has to bring in additional help to get the best from these players. That's not what I want. Benji says, I don't think top 6 is dead. 2 good weeks and it could be back on. But the problem with this team/manager is we can't count on anyone anymore. Do tend to agree. Alpha says, we cannot compete with Conte and Ranić and Moyes with Arteta, even if Arteta has the 5th best squad. Daniel says, I can't have this anymore. Spurs think they are a big club because they do better than us. My brothers who are Spurs fans are calling Arteta the new Ollie. Time to start stepping up as a club. This is embarrassing. Joe says, couple of years back, we had a good attack and bad defense, and now it's the other way around. I mean, we say that even defensively, we're struggling right now. We are absolutely struggling. Lewis says, if we win our next 4 games, big if, puts us on 35 points. We repeat that in the second half of the season. That's 70, which would normally be good enough for top 4. Look, the problem is, Lewis, is that it's not sustainable. That we can talk about if we do this, if we do that. But we've got Southampton, West Ham, Leeds in the next few games. And if we play like we've been playing, we can't expect to get the results that's going to get us those wins, to be on 35 points. And even if we were, and we play the same way that we've been playing and somehow get wins in those games, it's, as I say, not sustainable to expect to then achieve 35 points again in the second half of the season. It's just not, you just can't expect that because what we're seeing on the pitch is not sustainable. Cosmic Seer says, Tom, why on earth can't Balogun get into this team, but Nketiah, who's done nothing at senior level with 6 months on his contract, can? Look, Balogun, I said, should have started this game. I'm just looking at the Arsenal youth team lost also 2-0 to Everton last night as well. Missed that one. Let's bounce back on Sunday. They're losing it. That side of things, it's funny how that mentality is dropping after being top of the table. They've lost their last 2, maybe even their last 3. Definitely the last 2 in the league. Balogun is too good for that division. Far too for the youth football. And yeah, I would absolutely have brought him in, but who's to say that would have even changed anything? Who's to say that would have even changed anything in the team? We don't know. Stephen says, Tom, do you think the all or nothing series is going to reflect bad on the club? If it stays like this, it absolutely will. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to seeing it because hopefully it'll tell me things that I've not seen about this club. It's going to be really tricky. And Arteta doesn't like things getting out, so he may even be struggling with this idea of everything being filmed. Matthew says, Tom, with the club now playing every 3 days, Pepe will get his chance. Possibly so. I mean, our next game is on Saturday. We have a long time until we've got the next fixture. Just looking through our fixtures now. We play West Ham on the Wednesday and then Leeds again on the Saturday. Then we have a Tuesday game against Sunderland in the quarter-final of the League Cup. And we have Norwich on Boxing Day. And that Boxing Day game, that's the start of the new second half of the season when we can show what we're capable of. And then we've got a very difficult January because we're losing a fair few players. I feel like I just don't see them changing the coach. I just don't see them changing the coach at all. I don't see him going anywhere. Dave says, confidence is hard won and easily lost. The team is deflated, and that again as a result of the manager. Magamba says, I won't blame Arteta for accepting the job. It's the board higher up who needs to be blamed for hiring him. They could have got a better manager after he finished 8th last season, but the owner doesn't care. It's difficult to disagree. James says Josh Kroenke needs to be at the club every day and understand he can't run it like an NFL franchise. Prove he cares, get a flight and be at the club every day. I think you'd be very lucky if lucky is the wrong word. You'd be very surprised if you saw him at the club every day. Matt, Alex, Arsenal women, it's very separate. Different group of players, different manager. But, I mean, yeah, they were very disappointing the other day in their cup final. Terry says, the all or nothing was always going to be embarrassing. Ian says, players missing tap-ins and we're blaming Arteta. Of course, look, this is the first comment I've seen on today's show which is actually trying to defend Arteta and put the blame onto the players. Yes, they're missing tap-ins. Yes, they're missing some big chances. But the confidence is on the floor, Ian. The confidence is the lowest it's ever been because those players that are missing tap-ins are getting so few opportunities to score that they can't regularly get their mind in the set to finish those chances. This team is not creating. This team has an awful style of play. There is no style of play. I've been asking for a long time to see a style, to see something, to see what is the way that we want to play. And you know what the funny thing is, and I think it was James Benjamin. Actually, no, I think it was Harry Symeou actually that pointed this out, was that on Twitter, Xhaka comes back into the team and the Xhaka to Tierney to cross comes back. And yes, that's how we scored. Tierney crossed it in, Erdegaard scored from the cross. But that style that we kind of, if you want to call it a style, it's more of just a move, that go-to move of Xhaka to Tierney to cross to try and score was the primary again. And that's where we scored from, and it's simply not good enough. James says, Tom, I don't know why Pepe is not starting, let alone not coming off the bench. I don't know why he's not coming off the bench. And this is coming from someone who's been very critical of Pepe's performances. I don't know why he's not getting a chance to prove me wrong. I don't know why he's not getting a chance to come off the bench and try. That's the issue for me, is that while I'm happy to sit here and be critical of individuals, is that there's nothing more I want than for those players to get on the pitch and prove me wrong, because that's for the benefit of the club at the end of the day. If Pepe comes on and starts scoring, Arsenal start winning. That's what I want to see. So why put your faith in a 6-month contract soon to finish Eddie Nketiah, which is awful English. But why you would put your faith in him, I don't know. Actually, in the press conference, I think it was Kaya, colleague at Football.London, that asked the question why it was Nketiah that was brought on. And he just referenced the fact that he's been training, and obviously that he did quite well when he came on. He did okay when he came on. He hit the post and he created a couple of chances, but it still doesn't make any sense. Michelle, we don't seem to have plan B. We only saw like-for-like changes. Tavares for Tierney, Laka for... who came on for Laka? Was it Aubameyang? I think it was. And Nketiah came on for Martinelli. It doesn't change the system. I mean, do you remember the days where Arsene Wenger, if we were losing, would take off a central midfielder and bring on a forward, or he would take off a left winger and bring on a left back if we were winning? Those types of changes, they weren't the most inspiring of changes, or they weren't like the biggest, but at least they changed the shape and the style and the tactics and the mindset of the side in that moment just by making one change. Arteta's in-game management is the worst of a coach I've seen. I'm struggling to think of a manager with worse in-game management, and that is definitely tied to his inexperience in the game. So that's a huge problem for us. A huge problem for us. Archie, what's happened to our fast starts? I think confidence, mate. Confidence goes with that. Matt G, I feel for Erdegaard. He played really well and got a goal. His performance will go unnoticed. It won't go unnoticed from me, Matt. I raved about that performance because that's the best from Erdegaard. Probably the best performance from Erdegaard we've seen. Scored, could have had another, should have had an assist. Martinelli again, it's Martinelli missing that opportunity. Martinelli's had 2 big opportunities to score against Man United and Everton off the back of an Erdegaard really solid pass. So that's a shame. He could have easily have had, obviously, he could easily have had 4 goals this season if it wasn't for Aubameyang. He could have had a couple of assists to his name if Martinelli's finishing was a little bit more clinical and his composure was better in the final third. But he's a 20-year-old kid, so I'm not really going to have too much of a go at that. We're relying on kids to get us up the table. But yeah, Erdegaard's performance is going to go under the radar. Maybe another coach could get even more from Erdegaard and from this team. That's what I would want to see. Glenn says, sorry, but this Pepe talk is tiring. I'm tired of seeing him never take on his maker or watch take a horrific first touch to kill a decent attack or build up in the final thirds. Hey, look, Glenn, I'm on board with you. And this is one of the things I criticise Pepe for, is his first touch isn't good enough. He can't take on players well enough. He doesn't get into the box enough. But the thing is I want Pepe to be given a chance at times to prove me wrong. If who is on the pitch is doing awful, and we've got our £72 million player sitting on the bench, I want him to come on to be given the chance to prove me wrong. I don't want him sitting there doing nothing and just collecting dust and not gaining any value if we then look to sell him in the future, rather than bringing on Eddie Nketiah. That's the issue for me. And the problem is that we can look to sign players, and people are talking about Haaland in the chat box. Even if we sign Haaland, does it change all that much about how we play? Will it ultimately change where we are in the table? Because if we're not creating chances, how are those strikers going to score goals? We aren't creating enough. We aren't doing enough, and opposition sides are able to easily play against us. Even if Haaland is the one we sign, I just don't have the faith that things will progress. Blogger says, Tom, with hindsight, should we have considered Vieira or Gerrard? Look, no, I don't want an inexperienced coach. Vieira and Gerrard look like they're doing good things at Aston Villa and at Crystal Palace. I want someone who's been coaching for a significant period of time, that's got successes, that's shown progress with teams. I know that people may go, well, didn't we have someone like Unai Emery? He's been at loads of clubs. He's done this, he's done that. Sure. But I want someone who's genuinely made differences at the clubs that they've been at. I want someone with pedigree. I want someone just something different. Like we obviously brought in Arsene Wenger as a bit of an unknown, did really well during the early years, struggled. Bringing Unai Emery, struggled at PSG, at the one kind of really huge club he was at. Not that Valencia and Villarreal and Sevilla aren't big clubs, they are. But the hyper clubs that have those huge expectations, he ultimately failed to deal with those big personalities. He failed at Arsenal. We need someone that's going to come in and, that can take this team forwards. The question is who? And Carl, that is the big question. Who is it? Eric Ten Hag is a name that gets mentioned a lot. Why he would come to Arsenal, I don't know. Why would he leave Arsenal? Why would he leave Ajax? And why would he not join Man United in the summer over us? I don't know. Because it would make more sense for him to go to Man United in the summer after Ralf Rangnick moves upstairs. If he was available, I would absolutely get him. But I don't think he's going to be coming to Arsenal. Look, don't make no mistake. The Arsenal managerial job is one of the best out there. You're given time. You're given so much leeway. You're given the ability to really implement your style. The pressure is off for most of the time that you're there in terms of from the executives above you. You can make tons of mistakes, still be at the club. You can get knocked out of Europe entirely. You can lose to the former manager of the old side and still keep your job. You can spend £150 million in the market and have a negative goal difference 14 games into the season and still be at the club. It's the best job in the world for a manager because you get given a ridiculous amount of time. And that is very attractive for a lot of coaches, is they know if they come to Arsenal, they're going to be given time to implement their style. Massimiliano Allegri's gone back to Juventus and has struggled. Their team is questionable, but still, they're better than what they're doing. Ralf Rangnick, we're going to see what he's getting on with at Man United. Pochettino, PSG are looking a lot better this season. Lost the title last season to Lille. Christophe Galtier has gone to, I want to say, Nice. I haven't really been keeping up with how he's got on since going to Nice, but they sit fourth in the table, so they can't be doing that all that badly. I mean, Lille are now 11th. I know they may have lost a player or two, but Christophe Galtier, maybe, someone who's taken that team forward, won the league with Lille, has taken Nice up to the top four this season so far. Maybe he's someone that we could look at. I just don't know. I don't know who you would bring in. I really don't know who you would bring in. Matt, no, the League Cup doesn't save Arteta because it qualifies you for the Conference League, and that's not the competition that we want to be in. Ryan, we need someone revolutionary, but there's not many managers left available. Worried, Tom, who do we go for? I want Ten Hag or Graham Potter is my dream coach. Enrique won't leave. Luis Enrique is not a bad shout. I don't know why he would leave Spain, though. Zidane's a real strange one because beyond Real Madrid, we don't have any evidence of what he can do. He took a team with a ridiculous amount of money having been spent on it with the best players in the world and won the Champions League with them. Is he a bad coach? Absolutely not. But if you look at the end of his time at Real Madrid, things weren't good. I just don't know about Zidane. There's just something I'm not quite sure about him. Would I take him over Arteta, though? Probably. Probably. Bring in Michael Carrick as an interim, says Ocho. Simeone, says Vishal. The thing about Simeone, similar to Zidane, there's no evidence of what he would do outside of Atleti, really. it's difficult to know what he would do outside Atletico. And if you want a team that's going to play some really good football, Simeone's not the way to go. So again, that is another issue. Arteta's contract expires at the end of next season. That's when his contract leaves. Gasperini has just, I believe, signed a new deal with Atalanta, so he's not going anywhere. Skimstar says, hey Tom, have you realised the only time we've shown any form of success under Arteta is when one of the forwards have been extremely clinical, like an Aubameyang in the FA Cup, Pepe at the end of last season, and Emile Smith-Rowe this season. So it's not a bad shout, to be fair. Benji says, I'd take Potter, honestly, at least a few years. Look, Graham Potter's done some great things with Brighton, and I tell you, those Brighton fans that have been booing that situation, you're Brighton, and you're sitting in the top half of the table. You've gone to Anfield, and you've got a point. You've got some mad results this season. You've signed some really decent players. Mark Cucurella's come in, a player that I really like, Enoch Nwepu, Yves Bissouma. You've got a very decent squad that Graham Potter has helped to build, and you're booing him. I was a real big Graham Potter skeptic last year, but upon reflection and looking at him more and watching him more over the course of the last 6 to 12 months, he's proven me wrong, and he's doing brilliantly well. So the fact that Brighton fans are booing Graham Potter, I find absolutely staggering. There's some really... What about Jesse Marsh? I'm not sure Jesse Marsh is the right player, to be honest. Oh, why my chat box stop working? Oh, Lewis, not Zidane. I don't like Erdegaard. It doesn't like Erdegaard, and he was a glamour signing this year, so no. Elliot says bring in Overmars and bring in Ten Hag, or just bring in Graham Potter. Look, Edu, I don't really have a problem with Edu. I think Edu's done a lot of good things for this club. I think the signings that we've made are good. I think he's obviously... He's pushing us to spend money. We spent more in the summer under Edu than we've ever spent before, and I think we signed 6 good players. But yeah, I mean, I look at the manager that's, you know, trying to implement what Edu is looking to build at this team, and it's just not working for him. It's just not working for him at all. Omar, on a positive note, it seems my throat is doing better. It is doing a lot better, Omar. Thanks for noticing. Scoop says, Newcastle are looking at Tyrese Campbell. What do you think as him as a backup to the main striker? Look, Arsenal need to be looking at a caliber of striker that is of a European Champions League level, that's scoring regularly at the elite level to take over that mantle from Aubameyang. That's what Arsenal need to be looking at. That's what we need to be focusing on, is signing a striker that is the absolute top elite level to take this team forwards. Anything other than that, and I think we've probably made an error. Glenn says, Tom, would you happen to know this stat guy by any chance? What's the highest spot in the table a team has finished when having the youngest squad in the Premier League in the past? I honestly don't know. But you think back to that famous quote that Alan Hansen said, that you can't win anything with kids, and Manchester United won the league with a very young team. I don't think you can point to just having a very young side as the excuse of where we are, because I still think we've got a lot of better team and better players than where we currently are in the table. Michelle says, what do you think of Thomas Frank of Brentford? I mean, I've not watched loads of Brentford this season, I have to be honest. Obviously got them to the Premier League after a couple of times of asking. They're currently sitting in 13th. Is he the manager that I want? Probably not. As I say, I just want us to go for... I want to go for someone that's transformative. I wanted Antonio Conte, and I never thought he would come to a club like Spurs. So the fact that Spurs got him over us, and there was a chance to get him, and I did tweet this out, and I said that Arsenal not getting Conte did strike me as one of those missed opportunities, like we missed Jurgen Klopp and like we missed Pep Guardiola. It did strike me again as one of those moments that we then missed out on getting a manager because we stuck by someone that we shouldn't have done at the time, and instead we missed out on getting someone that could take us to that next level. And that Conte situation could indeed be exactly that. I'm just racking my brains now for possible managers. Hansi Flick is got. I think he went to the German national side. Did he not? And obviously, he's not going to be going anywhere after he went to. We went to the German national side after Bayern. Julian Nagelsmann is obviously at Bayern. He's going nowhere. Marco Rose is at Borussia Dortmund and has got them back into kind of that race. But ultimately, we also find ourselves in a position where the number of managers out there is also something that, there's not many available that you would say could take us to that next level. We're going to bring King into the conversation. As I said at the start of the show, we've got... I sent the link out to our Discord server for anyone who'd like to say their 5 minutes. King, how you doing, mate? Are you well? Are you good?
Good morning, Tom.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I sound good. I'm not very good at all, mate. I'm sure you're not either. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's the same here, isn't it? It's disappointing. Another loss, another opportunity that we throw in the bin. It's just, I feel like we're not moving forward with Arteta. I feel like we will have a couple of good games, we'll have a couple of wins, but if you look throughout the 2 years that he's been here, we still don't have a style of play in attack. We don't have a pattern of the way we want to pass the ball. We don't create angles. We do not create triangles. And it's not sustainable. At the end of the day, the quality of the league is so high that if you do not have a style of play in attack, you will be found out. And I think that's what's happened. That's why we haven't been able to finish higher than 8. That's why we don't create a lot of chances. That's why almost every attacking player that's played under Arteta has not overperformed or performed at a very high level on a consistent basis, because you need those tools. Individual brilliance can only take you so far. If it was just down to individual brilliance, you wouldn't need a Pep, you wouldn't need a club. You would just buy the best players and they would just win you the games.
So what do we do then, King? I mean, the obvious answer would be change manager, but then what do we do? Because as we've just you've probably been listening and just been discussing, who do you go to? If we change the coach, who do you go to from here?
I think, first of all, you need someone to analyze the quality of the squad, the strengths that the player have, and you go in and get a manager who fits those players. Don't do the opposite. Because what's happened too many times is that, example, after Arsene Wenger, we went with Unai Emery, but Unai Emery's style of play didn't fit the players that we had. So it's just going to be keep chopping and change. And then we went from Unai Emery to Arteta, but they are two very different managers. And again, and even then, we didn't really know what Arteta's style of play would be. Some thought it would be some kind of a Pep Guardiola style. Some thought it would be some kind of Arsene Wenger. But I think after almost 2 years now, we can clearly tell that he's not that kind of a manager. He's not a risk-taking manager. He's not a very attacking manager. And I think that's probably what's most disappointed by all the fans, because if there was anything we were looking forward to, it was to see an attack in Arsenal again after spending those years with Unai Emery.
Yeah. King, thank you so much for coming on, mate. I'm going to bring on Ojo now. I really appreciate you taking the time. As always, fella, speak to you soon.
Yeah, take care.
Have a good one, King. Let's bring in Ojo. How you doing, mate? Are you well? Are you good?
I'm good, Tom. I just didn't want you to be hung out dry like this.
I mean, where are you at? I asked King the question about the manager situation. If you change the manager, mate, where do you go from there? Like, how do you take the club forward?
Well, Tom, you don't stay in an abusive relationship on the fear that you might never get a date again, right? We know that.
I know. I just need to know who's the next relationship, though, Ojo. Who do you go to next?
No, we have to take it one step at a time, because the club obviously have not prepared for the situation. This is where Manchester United found themselves as well, and lucky for them, they managed to get Ragnick. I think we missed a trick when we passed on Conte. There was so many opportunities in the summer where I don't, at this point, I don't think it is on Arteta. I think it is above him. It is on Edu and the board, because they cannot see. I have never seen a manager have so many dips and then still come out and be successful. Maybe one or two dips and they eventually figure it out. But as we have discussed earlier, Arteta had to figure out to develop the attack before the league figured out how to play against our defense. And now the teams know all you have to do against Arsenal is just press the midfield, and we are as open as whatever.
Yeah.
So regardless, first thing Arteta has to go. But then the opportunity of getting a good manager out there, we will basically end up with another situation like Arteta, because there are no available proven managers out there, and definitely none that are willing to come and take up a situation.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Why do you think they're not? Why do you think no one would be willing? Because, as I said earlier, surely the Arsenal's job is one of the most attractive in the world. You get given time, you've got money to spend. That you can't say there isn't money to spend, because we spend a lot of it. You've got a very young squad with lots of potential. Why is it not an attractive place to come?
No, simply because I saw the number of managers who rejected United, and United is even a better prospect. If Zidane is going to reject United and he's the only top manager there who's currently available, why would he come and take up a team like Arsenal? United have Ronaldo, Sancho, Varane, all the players that he knows. Why would he come here and try to help Aubameyang and, like I said, find their shooting boots?
Would you want Zidane
over Arteta? Yes.
But that's not what I'm asking you. If we sacked
Arteta, that is the situation.
I know that's the situation, but just hypothetically, if we got rid of Arteta, would you want Zidane?
I think for the amount of accomplishments that Zidane has actually done, both as a player and a manager, I think he's underrated. Because part of the reason we underestimate him is because we assume because he had such a high performing team, then maybe it was a given. But winning 3 Champions Leagues, going on a break, coming back and winning the Spanish league, it is not a easy task. I remember I don't want to make the same mistake we probably made with Tuchel, because I used to think Thomas Tuchel was a useless coach in PSG. And when we had the opportunity, at that time when Arteta's job was slightly on the rocks, when the rumors of Tuchel was coming out, I thought, no, let us not bring this guy in. He's going to be another Emery. Or maybe...
Well, that was silly. I was the same as you. I really didn't think that Tuchel was going to transform Chelsea, but well, you look at what he's done, mate, and it's brilliant. It's what he's done.
Exactly, because right now we don't have a manager on the touchline. It feels like we have a bunch of assistants, and that is why they prepare something for the game and they show up in the game. When things are not going exactly according to their plan, they don't know how to change it. So that is why when Arteta's plan A doesn't work and everything has to go inch perfect, we don't even score goals unless the things are exactly where they have envisioned in their analysis system. So I feel that we need a manager. Maybe you can keep Arteta as his coach. Maybe Arteta works better that way. Maybe. But this is something for Edu, because for all the good job that he did, because I was very much Edu out during the transfer window, but he did a fantastic job, and he did it on vacation. Not many technical directors can say that.
Mate, if he can bring in 6 signings like he did while barbecuing, mate, imagine what he can do when he's not doing that.
Exactly. but just like how Arteta is inactive on the pitch to change things, I feel that the board should not try to do what the manager is doing. They have to move, because we are not so far away from top 4. It feels like a dream, because at the start of the season, nobody was expecting top 4, but the context was different. We did not expect so many teams to underperform like this. Okay, now that we are 4 points away, if we change things now, we might get a bounce. Because right as we are going into a slump, all the teams that were underperforming have started getting their bounces.
Yeah.
So this is the perfect time to change. So what is the worst that could happen? We might end up 8th again, but at least we are not doing the same thing. We have tried something new.
That's the question, isn't it? It's a case of when the worst case scenario is something that you can go, well, it's probably worth changing, and that still happen. That's when you've probably reached the point where you need to change. Ojo, thanks so much, mate, for coming on. Really appreciate your time as always, and I'm sure we'll see you on a preview show again very soon, fella.
Take care, Tom.
Have a good one, mate. Thank you to Ojo for dropping into the show, as always, and King too. I'm going to be around for another 15 minutes or so, just for this extra long special morning 8 a.m. show. I've put a link in the chat box if you would like to have your say. You can DM us at the Gooner Talk TV on Twitter or the Gooner Talk on Instagram. I am across both and checking both regularly if you indeed would like to come on. Let's go into the chat box though and get some more of your questions. Andy Love says the board need to understand that you can allow a manager to spend 250 million, but if he isn't the right manager, the investment won't make the difference. First, get the right manager. I mean, if you build a 500 million pound house without building the right foundations, it will still crumble. Magambo says Chelsea have decent players, not world class, but they are young and they can play at a tempo higher to match City and Liverpool, and cup competitions like the Champions League is about to who performs on the day. I mean, interestingly, I think if you were watching Monday Night Football on Sky Sports and they were looking at Ralph Rangnick's impact on Manchester United after just a few training sessions, but in their game against Crystal Palace, in which they won 1-0, I think they had 12... I think that's something like the recoveries that they made during that game was the highest of any recoveries on Opta's history of covering Manchester United. And that occurred after just a few games. A manager bounce does exist. A manager can have an impact in just a few days. These are people performing and working at the elite level. So if anyone that's fearful of changing coaching, it not having an immediate impact, the evidence suggests that that is not the case. You look at Tuchel, you look at what Rangnick is now doing. Conte, even after their Mura disaster, has now got them in a position where they can win their game in hand and they sit fourth in the table without question. So that's obviously a big problem. Anne says, I don't get the 4 points off the top thing. Our team should be in the top 4 at the moment, considering the points that we have dropped. Shoulds are always going to be words that are thrown about. When you use words like we should be here, it's just hypotheticals. And it's just not something that's unfortunately you can rely upon. Let's go to Z Blogger, who says, mark my words, with Arteta at the wheel, we will not finish above West Ham United or Spurs. We'll be lucky for 7th. Not good enough. It's time to thank Arteta and move him on. We're going nowhere. Colin says, is Sambi injured? As I thought he was one of our best players. Again, Colin, this is a great point because I brought this up last night. How can our best central midfielder have been left out of the last 2 games? Our biggest 2 games of the season against Manchester United and against Everton. Well, we've needed to get those points and we leave out our best performing central midfielder. I find it staggering. I find it absolutely crazy. If it says, Tom, remember when Fabregas said as a young player, he had so much pressure on his shoulders. I feel bad for Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe. Saka has 2 years left. Do you think he will want to sign? I have hope that he will because he came out of Hale End and that gives me a little bit more hope. But at the end of the day, there's no guarantees that he will, because is Arsenal going to be able to offer him the 6th best Copper Trophy runner-up, apparently, which I still think is ridiculous in itself because the votes for that trophy is a joke in any way. But is Arsenal going to be able to match his ambitions? If Manchester City come in with an £80 million bid, is he going to want to push for a move? You wouldn't blame him at this stage if we finish out of Europe for another season. UL says, currently Arteta needs to step up and improve. No other solution out there. I disagree. I think you can go to other teams and you can get managers out of their clubs. You see it happen all the time. So I don't see why we couldn't do that. It's just a case of who, and that is the big question. In the chat box, in the comment section, if you're watching this on catch up, do let us know who would be your choice and why. Don't just throw in a random name, but do just let us know who and why you would want that specific coach. Let's go to James. Will the Emirates be toxic on Saturday if we don't play well? I mean, you can imagine it getting very toxic very quickly. We'll have to wait and see if it does not go well. But we had one of the worst home records in the first half of last season. It was toxic. Nothing changed. So even if it is toxic, is there a chance that maybe it won't even matter? Possibly so. Capello says, I don't know why, but I feel the same way I felt about Emery just before he got sacked in 2019. Only difference is that Arteta won't be sacked. Draxus says, Simeone is a tough personality that would take no BS. I mean, Arteta came in and said he would take no BS. Do I want a coach that would take no BS, or do I want a coach that has a philosophy, as a style of play, that has a track record of progressing and improving players? The mentality thing is obviously a good characteristic and something you want implemented into a side. But I want someone that can implement a style of play. I want someone that can progress individual players, that can get us playing some really attractive, solid football, that can create chance after chance after chance, that can press, that can win back the ball quickly. That's what I want. Taking no BS is, it's secondary to winning and to playing well and to creating chances and to improving. So look, that for me is always going to be the priority at the end of the day over anything else. Benji says, do our players need sports psychologists, Tom? Their mentality is so fragile. I genuinely feel most people in the crowd could be more motivated than them. We've always had a mentality problem. There's been a mentality issue at this team for a long time. Players have come and gone, and that mentality issue has remained. There's been a rebuild that's gone on. We've added 6 new players this summer, and the fear is going to be now that we've added 6 players and they are going to become more of the same rather than them being the catalysts to change the mentality of this side. That's the big problem that I'm worried about now as well. J2 the first says, why does Arteta always rotate players who are playing well and aren't injured like Maitland-Niles and Lokonga? I don't know. Z-Blogger says 4-3-3 of Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Emile Smith-Rowe and Sambi in the middle. We need to move this 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3. The system is not working. Again, we're starting to talk about players. We're starting to talk about systems when we all know that there is one main issue that we could change to solve this. James says, if our long-term vision is buying British and promoting youth, then Potter would be my choice. I don't know why, but I have a nagging doubts about Rodgers, even though it's his record. Hey, look, I've said the same thing. And you see it this year at Leicester, that there is always something about Rodgers that eventually turns stale, and we could be seeing it this season. They've always messed it up at the final hurdle of Leicester under Rodgers. They've never been able to get there. Liverpool under Rodgers messed up at the final hurdle during their title. There's just something about Brendan Rodgers. He's a choker. That's who Brendan Rodgers is as a coach. He is a choker. He will not get you to where you want to go. He will nearly get you there, but he does not seem to have the gravitas to be able to take you all the way. And that's why maybe Rodgers is not the right choice of manager. And Magamba says, I'll hold back on the attractive football temporarily if a manager with a boring style gets us to win a title. Hey, look, if we're winning games and we're winning them decisively, not the way in which we won games during that 10-game unbeaten run where we were lucky to win games. If we're winning games through dominant, solid performances, and we're winning titles, you can't complain. The problem is now is that during that 10-game unbeaten run, I think it failed to deceive because we were winning games, yes, but we weren't playing good football. We weren't dominating games. We weren't creating enough clear-cut chances. We weren't clinical enough, and there were lots of underperforming players in the team. And that all combined festers into something which leads to results like we saw yesterday against Everton. Noah Henning says, Arteta over coaches. He's too authoritarian with the players' individual roles. That's why we are so stale and predictable. We'll see it in the documentary. We'll wait and see. Tulip says, Julian Lopetegui is getting my attention, performing well at Sevilla, or let's get Potter. I mean, Lopetegui is doing a great job at Sevilla. Whether or not he can translate that to the English game is always going to be a bit of a risk. Cheerful Cedric says, everyone scapegoat Ødegaard, but all of our players are so static. How is he meant to find a pass? I agree with you. I've been a backer of Ødegaard. I think he's a great player. I think that yesterday he was our best player along with Tomiyasu. So he does get scapegoated because he's the worst of the 6 signings under Arteta, and I think he was the biggest stick for a lot of people that were virulently against Arteta to bash him with. Unfortunately, he may be a victim of that, which is not something that I'm too keen about publicising all that often. I hate when people call people clowns. It really does lower your IQ. No sleep. Bringing Simeone in would be the end of Partey. He's already tried to get away from him once. You never know. There's no love lost, it seems, between them. Alpha says, Potter took a 4th division team to Swedish first tier and made them a Europa League team who beat Arsenal in a match, and he's got the most out of every player in that Brighton team by implementing a system. I think that in 2020, he struggled with Brighton. I don't think he got the most out of that side. But however, from that point in 2021, Graham Potter has done brilliant things this year with that Brighton team, and he's made some really solid signings as well. Karim says Tomiyasu could become an amazing wing-back. If we can develop his deliveries, you never know. Maybe he could. Game says Tierney was our best player till he got subbed. I disagree. Defensively, he left us exposed. I mean, the Richarlison equaliser that was ruled out was all Tierney, not getting back and recovering. Offensively, he was really good, but he just didn't have the fitness. He's not match fit yet, and he's been kept out of the team for so long that he's just lost that edge to his game. He needs to be played consistently now to get back into his best game. We needed to make that sub, but Tavares made some really silly errors. Obviously, the throw-in being the big one in the game yesterday as well. We need a fast attacking manager, says Stephen. Let's go to Thracian, who says, give Arteta till the end of the season. If not top 6, then get rid. Look, I think there's a real solid argument for saying that if you get rid now, you've got a chance to arrest this slide because it's a slippery slope. I just feel like there's a situation whereby you're going to be sitting there in December after the next 3 or 4 games where we've lost, say, a couple more, and you could have said, if we'd have changed things now, maybe we could have got something in that was a lot better. The problem is I don't think they can sack the manager now and get someone in time. That's a problem. Yeah, let's have no anti-Semitism in the chat. Thank you very much. Xander says, how about Niko Kovac uses a similar system to our current manager, U-shape and wing play, or do we need a completely different philosophy? Look, Niko Kovac failed at Bayern. At Monaco, they aren't having the best of seasons from what I've heard. They really are not. Tchouaméni apparently has been kind of their standout performer. But beyond that, Monaco are really not having the best of seasons. 7th in the table so far. They brought in the likes of Boadu, who has not got in the team whatsoever, to try and take on that mantle from Ben Yedder. But again, I wouldn't be going for Niko Kovac personally. Alpha says, Tom, he didn't struggle with that Brighton team. He was time and time again let down by poor finishing. XG table had Brighton finishing in 6th, which shows the amount of chances his system creates. Look, Alpha, it's a solid point. I can't disagree with you there. His system is certainly getting a lot of chances for the team. Mopé was really bad. Yeah, look, fair enough. It's a good point. Well made. Bill, my top 2 favourite managers are Erik Ten Hag and Lucien Favre. Favre, again, a manager that failed at Dortmund in the end. Is he the right choice? I'd have to speak to Drew more about that one. But Erik Ten Hag looks to be one of the best out there. Thracian says, Tom, I feel like you're catastrophizing the situation. You have a show asking if we were back on the Arteta train because we were doing so well. Now you say we played badly in our winning run. I said about a show previously about getting back on the Arteta train because we were in a top 4 race. And when you're in a top 4 race and you're 1 point off the 4th position in the table, you look a little bit silly to be going on chat boxes and typing Arteta out. It looks a little bit strange because no one expected us to be in a top 4 race this season, and we were in one. But very quickly, what we identified and what we also raised during that time, and what I always have said over the last couple of months, is that the way that we've been playing has not looked sustainable. And that these types of results that we've seen against Man United and against Everton, you could see them coming. You could see this situation transpiring. But all the while we were winning games and all the while that we remained to be in that race for the top 4, it's very difficult to sit there and blast the coach when he's got us into that situation. When you now are in a situation where the evidence of the Man United game and the Everton game happen, that's when you can change. And you're wrong, Thracian. I disagree with you. It's not about changing every 5 minutes. So let's not be exaggerative and hyperbolic about the situation. This is over the course of several weeks. We've had a 10-game unbeaten run that gets you, as I say, 1 point off 4th place in the league. You've then gone, and as we've said, and throughout that period, it's not like I've been sitting here during these shows, during that 10-game unbeaten run going, he's the greatest coach of all time. Things are amazing. No. During that entire period, you go and watch back the reaction shows to the Norwich game, the reaction shows to the Burnley game, the reaction shows in general to those fixtures. We always continue to highlight the chance creation problem, the lack of a style, the need to see it consistently. Consistency was a word that we brought up till it made us sick in the face. It is not about changing opinions every 5 minutes because the opinion has not changed. I've been on the fence all season. I've been after the Villarreal game, feeling like we need to change the coach. We start a new season. I said, look, we're going to wait and see. We're going to judge what happens. And I've always maintained that by Christmas, we can make a solid judgment at that period of time. So you're unfair to make your judgment in that way, because it doesn't reflect the way that these shows have been over the last 2 months. And I think actually, if there's any reactionary comments, that in itself is a reactionary comment. No sleeps. A lot of people are shaking their Arteta stance. Can you blame them? No, of course you can't. And to be fair, and this is why I have a lot of respect for the likes of Dan Potts, etc., is because Dan stood by his opinion for a long time on Arteta, but he's done it in a way in which, he raised a lot of good points. And I've had him on the show because he can put across his argument in a good way and we can have some really good discussions. Whereas there are other people that want Arsenal to lose in order for Arteta to go. They're not Arsenal fans. I want Arsenal to go and win against Southampton on Saturday. Could it prolong Arteta's time at the club? Yes, absolutely, it probably could. But I want Arsenal to win. That is the ultimate. That is the bottom line. That is the minimum a fan wants to be a fan, is for their team to win. And as soon as you start wishing your team to lose, you're no longer a fan. Can you come back and become a fan again? Sure. But that's not the behaviour. That's not the way that you go. And as soon as you start wanting this team to lose, you're no longer an Arsenal supporter. And it's as simple as that. I think a change of coach is probably the better decision right now when we look at things. But in terms of this game on Saturday, I want Arsenal to win, absolutely. I want them to play brilliantly. I want them to score goals. I want them to create chances. I want them to look better so that we can go into the next game against West Ham. Because at the end of the day, where we are right now is the most important thing. And where we need to progress to try and get back into where we are, will set up the eventual next coach into an even better place. We'll see what happens. We're going to wrap things up there. We've been going for an hour or so. Thanks to King and to Ojo for jumping on with me as well earlier on today. Do drop a like on today's video and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here with those notifications turned on, so you never miss a show. We'll be back tomorrow morning. No more shows for you today, but we'll be back tomorrow morning with the 8 a.m. transfer show. We'll then be back talking about William Saliba's month and the Arsenal youth team as well. And then we'll be looking ahead to the Southampton game on Saturday. Plenty more shows for you to come during the week. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you've got those notifications turned on and that you're liking the videos as well. See you soon, guys. Have a fantastic day. And as always, up the Arsenal.